Okay, hey guys, I just turned on the lamp in my make sure the audio is picking up. Yeah, I just turned on the lamp in my office space, and it actually doesn't look that bad because I have there's like the couch, my desk is over here in this corner, and then there's boxes all around me. True, but I'm no island, peninsula baby. Makes no sense. I know, crazy. Hmm. On my artwork that I need to hang up on the walls and all that stuff. Is this Patreon gonna become like my where I get to be a little messy? You know, I think I am innately just a smidge. I don't know if I actually want to do the video that I said I was gonna do, the fleshed out video on hypergamy on my YouTube channel. I'm inclined to because I opened that can of worms, and so I feel like I am responsible, like it's my responsibility to. My biggest issue is that there is a difference between the theory and social science of hypergamy and the YouTube Black woman community that has come about, and the Black woman YouTube community that has come about. And how do you have this conversation based on the actual research that is available on how the term was coined, where it comes from, what it actually means, and the way that it has become this movement on YouTube? My second issue is that this movement on YouTube, largely, now that I have watched more videos than I care to on this topic, is largely, they spend a lot of time talking about other Black women. There isn't actually a lot of principle or theory in what is being discussed on YouTube. And when the theory is applied, I mean, I guess you can extrapolate this message of Black women do have the right to demand certain things from their partners. But it's constantly framed as though Black women have not demanded these things from their partner because other Black women have kept them from demanding these things from their partner. And so it creates this value system that is based on my value over not being like other women who look like me. And so it fosters this very antagonistic community. And so, no, I don't want to do another hypergamy or any hypergamy video on my YouTube channel because I don't want to deal with the people who are commenting off the title, who don't watch the video, or who just enjoy being petty and antagonistic on YouTube because that's what these communities have allowed them to become. I've taken down, and I think at some point I'm probably gonna take down that video I did with Wesley. I'm fine with the video, but it's long and it's, you know, not necessarily the messaging that I want coming out of my channel anyway. And I think it served its purpose. But I have taken down the Get Ready With Me where I originally said hypergamy was not the answer. I didn't say nothing wrong in the video. I stand by everything I said. But the comments were just out of control. And then I took down my apology to Chrissy. Now, I gave the anonymous young lady grace because I just didn't want to continue a beef that I wasn't actually interested in. I honestly, at that point, had not watched much of her content aside from the one or two videos I had watched previously and then decided that she was not my cup of tea, so I was gonna keep it pushing. And then I saw the video where she was very blatantly discussing me and I believe one other YouTuber, and I mean, according to the comments, I was not wrong. I didn't feel like it was my audience that was actually antagonizing her or saying a whole lot that was like quote unquote negative. But I mean, you know, I'm not ashamed of my apology. I don't feel bad that I did it. It was something that I felt like I needed to do, and I did it. I took it down though because she she took my grace and used it against me and tried to claim, you know, she passively aggressive, like very passive aggressively claimed that I was lying about commenting on her channel and that I had gone back and erased my comment from her channel. Girl, I thought I gave a very thorough apology. I thought I squashed it, but I was still getting people coming back from that video in particular where she says what she says and she drops the seed. Cool, sis, whatever, I can't give grace and expect the grace to be given back to me in return. So I'm fine with that. But I was getting a lot of comments from that video. People were coming back and commenting and calling me a liar. And I was just tired of seeing it in my notifications. I was tired of seeing it in my dashboard. So the video is private. Because it served its purpose. I think the people that needed to see it saw it, and I'm good on that. And I don't really care to continue that sort of. I'm just gonna pay that side of the internet dust because I don't fuck with it. I think I talk enough about where my ethos lie that people can figure out why I don't care for certain other content creators' content, and I don't need to drive a campaign against her. It served its purpose, and I'm gonna move on, and they can move on. And if I wasn't getting no views, we can go back to not getting no views, and that's that on that. So I am a bit hesitant because I think, if I do want to space out the time between what I initially said about hypergamy and then doing a proper video on it. But the thing is that my ideology on it, even with now having watched, Shira 7 and the Pink Pill and who's the girl with the thick eyebrows that live in New York? Young girl. She's pretty brown skinned girl. I don't remember her name. She kind of does this whole Claire, yeah guys thing. That girl. Chloe. I've watched all of it, right? And I still don't agree with it. And the first thing that gets me is the amount of time that is spent talking about other Black women. And I think at any point in which, anytime you're trying to preach a ideology or a theory to your following, I feel like if it is of quality and it has merit, it can be done without basing it against you being against other people, particularly other people in your own community. It's wild to me that if you feel that hypergamy in the way that you define it is a ideology that Black women need to take on, that you can take that on without talking so much about the Black feminists. It's just weird to me because they are in mass anti-Black feminism. I don't think they realize that they are specifically railing against Black feminists and that there is a difference in the broader feminism between the theories within Black feminism that are specific to Black feminism, because they then take on a lot of the language that has been curated through the synthesizing of Black feminist theory, and they use that language to buoy their points while also trying to shade Black feminists. And it's mind-boggling. It doesn't make sense to me. Also, I have encountered one of these women in real life prior, and I didn't even realize it because I was at VidCon in 2017. This is messy, and this is why I'm just like, how do I talk about this, right? Because if I simply talk about the theory of hypergamy, right, and the social science behind it, I'm going to be talking about it in a way that doesn't really approach the way that it's specifically talked about amongst Black women on YouTube. But then if I talk about the way that it is talked about amongst Black women on YouTube, you also do have to look at the people that are preaching this messaging. And it's because every last one of them is preaching this messaging as a way to encourage people to buy something from them, to buy my ebook on how to invoke the power of your feminine self. Even the hypergamy movement that exists on Twitter, it all comes back to hire me as a consultant on how to become more feminine so that you can get men to help you. You then, because they are selling themselves as individuals who can individually help you, and they are positioning this messaging as their messaging is a way that's going to elevate the Black community because you need to think the way that I am telling you to think. You do want to interrogate who are these people giving out the messaging. And I have encountered the Pink Pill in real life, and she crazy. I encountered her because Nathan, Zed, and Demetrius had to call security on her. And that's just wild to me, right? And then this is the same person who wants to put my name in the title of a video and talk about how I'm bitter and single. Okay, sis, we bitter and single if that's what that is. Sure. Security's not getting called on me at VidCon though. There's a lot of time spent on identifying, again, other black women as masculine. And there's just so many things that are patently wrong with, like, one of them posted a picture of Tiana Taylor and said, is she masculine? And it's like, you know, it's wild to me to position this as a mode of liberation, but then rely on the same sort of anti-black woman rhetoric that has long oppressed the black woman community. I keep saying there's a long history to all these shit, but there's a long history to all these shit about how we have weaponized womanhood against black women, and how a lot of our understandings of femininity and womanhood are based on white fragility. And so when we feed into these very, whether you can call these Victorian ideals, right? The man is the head of the household, the man is a professional provider, and the woman should be, you know, prim and proper and highly feminine and rouge on their cheeks and dainty and delightful. You can also look at the history of, like, post World War II, which is post-war era, and how womanhood was used in the political sense to remove women from the workplace, because during World War II, not just black women were always in the workforce, but white women entered into the workforce because of World War II. When you have, like, the G.I. Jane image, and or Jane or whatever, that little white woman with the bandana, that bitch, yeah, you have that. But, you know, you didn't want women to stay in the workforce. And so we have this womanhood, you know, with the aid for children, aid for dependent children, ADCS, that at first, you know, the first sort of welfare programs that come out under FDR, and we find ways to keep them out of the hands of black women, because we want to encourage white women to stay at home and not be in the workforce. And so again, we have this sort of politicized, weaponized white womanhood that says, you know, we want to keep white women at home with the children. We want to keep black women in the workforce because at this point they are largely domestic workers. So no, we cannot have the black women leaving our white households who's going to do the laundry, sis. And so we curate this image that is largely antithesis to the ways in which black women have the options of survival for in the 50s and 60s, right? And so it's interesting whether they're going back to Victorian ideals, whether they're going back to, you know, what's that TV show with the two kids and the dog with the white people? I don't know. That shit, it's been a long day, sis. The black community just largely has never really, because of systematic issues, has never had the options to truly, as a community, as a whole, you know, individuals get out and individuals are able to replicate these images. But as a whole, we have never been allowed to self-sustain in a way that's meaningful, right? Like, there has been a constant push to tell the black community that we need to have two-parent households. We need to have a nuclear household where the mother stays at home and the father goes to work. But we were not allowing black men to work in most industries. We were also highly incarcerating black men for the entirety of history. We also have, you know, there's a whole history of black women being incarcerated and caught up in the penal system, you know, based on things, based on lack of femininity, based on how we see them as mothers, based on giving birth to stillborn babies. Like, there's all this, like, wild history. And it really bothers me that there is a movement that black women are feeding into that says, I'm going to value myself based on shaming other black women, based on turning my nose up at other black women. Beyond the other black women that they are with, that they are looking at their own ancestors with disgust. They are looking at their own mothers and grandmothers with disgust. I think it is very disingenuous to create a narrative that says that black women have been choosing bad partners. Your grandma did not marry a crackhead. Your grandma married a man who maybe at some point in life got caught up in the crack epidemic. But at the point when they met, she married her equal. And I promise you that she might not have demanded the same things that you now understand you have the right to demand, because black feminism has worked for that right. But she did demand some equity. Now, fortunately, society has evolved. But to position that evolution as you feeding back into the same things that she was likely taught in the 1940s, or feeding into this idea that men are being feminized. And I don't understand. This is another thing. How we having videos about hypergamy and leveling up, and you talk about trans people. What do trans people have to do with you dating? This is why I can't like how you transphobic? How does my dating, like, what does me as a heterosexual woman espousing very heteronormative language around dating have anything to do with trans people? I dead ass watched the video, and at some point I think I'd be on my phone, I'd be playing the Spades app, I'd be doing other things, and it veered off to talking about trans, and I had to like rewind because I was like, we're talking about leveling up. What is got to do with trans women? What? I'm so confused. But like, they find a way in every video to talk about gay men, trans women, and feminist black women. And it boggles my mind that we are spending, and maybe because I was watching more recent videos, and I'm sure whatever the hell I did hit a nerve, clearly. And so everyone without talking about it is on this anti-feminist kick. I emailed Merriam-Webster Dictionary, and I asked them, why did they define hypergamy as marrying a partner of equal or higher social class? Because I had not been able to find any academic paper, journal, or book that includes equal in the definition. Do you have any resources that use equal in the definition as well? And they actually got back to me. And they said that a Collins Dictionary, I had never heard of Collins Dictionary, defines hypergamy as a custom that forbids a woman to marry a man of lower social class. And Dictionary.com defines it as the practice among Hindu women of marrying into a caste at least as high as their own. If you start reading like the journals and somebody tried to shame me for looking up at JSTOR, but all the papers on hypergamy on there that are looking at the Hindu community are talking about it in the power dynamic structure, right? What does it mean that the men of a higher caste are allowed to marry a woman of a lower caste, and the women don't actually have autonomy in this decision? It is largely the men choosing who they marry, but the women cannot marry someone beneath them. And somehow this has been flipped to, this is a movement that is encouraging women to level up, but sure. But they just quoted other online dictionaries, and they said, additionally, a number of articles come up describing hypergamy in this way. So our definition is supported by usage. And I'm going to email them back because I do have questions then, because is there no rigorous standard in which you use to apply words to your online dictionary? It just seems like the online version of Merriam-Webster is pretty much used to keep up with but then, like, if I'm writing an article, aren't I going to look up Merriam-Webster.com and like use their definition to base, like, bruh, I don't be knowing. It don't really make sense to me, but I am going to email them back before I do the official video. Sorry, I'm fat. I got to unbuckle my pants. And even if I look at the broader discussion around encouraging black women to level up, my basic issue with it is, great, level up, but leveling up is not a standard that you set based on your dissidence to other black women, right? It's not distancing yourself from other black women, because I promise you there are so many things out of your control that'll knock you down with the rest of us, sis. And so if you turn your nose up at us, and if you shame us and you set your value system on how you are better than us, please don't ever come back to us asking for help. Setting a value system, which I've said several times now, against other black women, the precariousness of elevating your social class. And I just don't think that we're trying to attack the financial lacking of the black community, which did not happen in a vacuum. There's structures that surround our community that have gotten us here. Again, the idea that this is a mode of liberation is just very disingenuous to me. It might be a mode that, if you have the access and the privilege to, you creating a more comfortable lifestyle for you and your offspring. Even with that, because this message is largely relying on making sure that your man can pay for everything, and then what men are you finding who can pay for everything? It is also part of this movement is leaning into how to swirl and date outside your rate. I'm not against black women dating outside their race. Most black women who marry outside their race do end up marrying into a higher economic class. Cool. But there's still a privilege that exists in that. There's a power play that happens there. There's privileges working for you there. And it's just not something that is open generally to the broader class of black women. And I do think that everything that this level up hypergamy movement is trying to on YouTube address from the communal standpoint, from where black women are coming from in the community, from they are tired of being mules, that's a black feminist message. Okay. Tired of championing for the black community and having black men be misogynistic towards them and oppressive towards them. Again, black feminist messaging. And so now they are no longer dating dusties. I do not believe that black women have historically dated dusties. I do think there is a conversation to be had about how religion has been used to tell black women to build a man up. Again, black feminists have been constantly talking about how it is not black women's roles to mother their husband. And then for all the other things they're trying to remedy, from the black woman labor issue to household labor issue to the feminization of poverty within the black community, lackluster dating pool we have overall. They're trying to remedy all these problems by telling black women to no longer struggle like black feminists, which is crazy to me, and to do all these material, physical things to themselves so that they can get chosen by the man, whether he's black, white, or whatever. And the problem is it still does not put the power into the hands of the woman. Like, we are still feeding into a power structure that says that my value is against other black women and it is based on me being chosen by a black man. I don't think that's not communally liberating. That's not individually liberating. And I think we are setting up a lot of people for less than situations. Okay? It is very precarious to elevate your social class. So let's say you are successful. Let's say you wear the right perfumes, you dress a certain right way, you go to the right black doctor fraternity conventions, your weave is laid the right way, and you get picked by a nigga or some white pink dick. Whoever you get picked by a man who makes enough money where you can stay at home and focus on your Instagram boutique and you ain't got to work and all the bills are paid. Somebody actually asked me if I've been in a hypergamous situation. I have absolutely been in dating situations where I've not only had a man pay for everything, I've had a man who would pay for everything, do whatever I wanted to do, and then come wash dishes when I was in a bad mood just because he wanted to prove himself to me. There's still so much more that goes into a relationship. There's still so many other things. And when you put yourself in a power dynamic where you had to be picked by a man under certain pretenses of your femininity, I think you're setting yourself up to not value your role in the household. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, but I personally think that stay-at-home moms are very valuable. And that when you look at the household structure, that it's not simply that the man is the provider and the head of the household and so he gets to dictate everything. It is that especially women that are college educated, that are skilled black women who are leaving the workforce to raise children. You know how expensive childcare is in this country? Like, that is a very, very valuable resource. So I'm not saying that I'm against this idea of people who are in relationships where the man does financially provide and the woman stays at home. I think that the issue is how do we get to that and how are we valuing who we are within that relationship based on this value system that says I'm better than you because my man pays for everything. My last thing is that none of these women are really living the hypergamy lifestyle that they promote. They either live at home, they have maybe upper middle class husbands, largely husbands who, God forbid, a medical emergency comes up, they don't have the windfall to sustain that. And it'll be interesting to see which of them can pass on their generational wealth to their children. I don't know. It seems that it is really just a movement that, because there's a large, steady viewership around it, that gets a great engagement rate. I think it gets a great engagement rate because they spend a lot of time antagonizing other women. And it's people always have something to say when there's a negative comment to be left, right? Like if I can simply talk about the way someone else looks, or, when the whole Chrissy thing popped off, there were people leaving comments about where I lived, what I did on the day to day. I was like, ooh, this is not good. When you get in the comments, and a lot, because you've done a hypergamy video and you veered into talking about trans people, or talking about gay men, or talking about other Black women, the comments don't really become a whole lot about the theory and synthesizing what hypergamy and leveling up means in the context of various lifestyles. The comments largely become about other people and how other people ain't it. And those get a lot of engagement. And so, I don't really feel like I need to champion against the movement. It doesn't need to be a cause that I take on or I'm against. I kind of just would like to go back to not knowing that side of the internet ever existed. But because I think enough of my audience might tiptoe over into that movement, and they don't necessarily understand what they're getting into. If I can find a way that doesn't rely on, it's just that the movement on YouTube is so peculiar to what the actual definition of the word is, that I don't know how productive this conversation could truly be. And sometimes it's hard to know how productive the conversation would be, because a lot of my audience does not comment because they know the comments are going to be antagonistic, and I don't really know who I'm helping or benefiting in situations like this. But that's that on that. That's my thoughts on the hypergamy movement. I don't think I said, there's nothing I've said about it that I want to take back or that I want to change. I still don't believe that it is the solution to what I say is the need for a diverse model of relationships, right? I don't think that marriage is largely beneficial to Black women, but that doesn't mean that Black women shouldn't get married. That doesn't mean that I will never get married, or that Black women shouldn't partner. What I am saying is that we don't need to rely on this super traditional ideology around marriage, and that we should have diverse models of relationships. Everyone doesn't want to be married. Everyone doesn't want to be a mother. And I feel like because we don't have this discourse about diverse models of relationships, a lot of us on our own have to go through therapy to become comfortable with the ideologies around partnering that we're told are radical. And they really aren't that radical. At the Black community, historically, a lot of our families, especially Black American descendant of slaves, we have had very non-traditional households, because the Black community at large has never really been allowed to foment and foundationally curate the nuclear family in a way that could self-sustain. And because there's always these modes of oppression that are coming at us. Plenty of us come from households where we were raised by different members of the household. It wasn't necessarily that we had a mother and a father in the household. We might have had, our fathers might have passed away young. For whatever reasons, our parents didn't stay together. We might have had very influential grandmothers and aunts and uncles. We may have been raised by grandparents. There's just all these different models of relationships that are prevalent, and we just don't have the language to define these relationships with pride. And instead, communally, we have been told to be ashamed of not coming from two-parent households. Look at the households we've come from with disdain, and not seeing that there are examples for different ways in which our relationships can possibly go, and what can we take from it and create healthy relationships, right? I think it is entirely possible to consciously partner with someone as simply a co-parent. And I've seen it happen, but we do not have a larger discourse around it, because you're a single, especially if you're a single mother, like, oh my gosh, no. And I'm like, it don't always have to be, oh my gosh, no. Or the fact that some of us might be sexually fluid, and there are different ways in which our relationships might evolve. And we talk a lot about men not being monogamous, but every woman is not meant to be monogamous. And I don't think monogamy and our commitment to it comes down to simply what our gender is. Different people have different, not just sexuality, but the way in which they are sexually minded. And you go through phases in your life. And there are people, I think, the sex positive movement is, for the area that I used to live in, was called the lifestyle. And so there are people that are into the lifestyle. And we, again, don't have positive modes of communication and representation about all these different relationships look like, and the ways in which we can curate these relationships, the boundaries we can set, the consent, what we can demand and what we can give and what we can take and what we can put into these relationships. And I think actually having these discussions about the diversity of relationships that we should be allowed to have and that people can enter into in a very healthy manner would have much larger positive communal implications than simply telling someone that they need to harness their femininity so that they can get a man who will pay for everything. Because he can pay for everything and the power dynamic is on his side, he can move on to the next bitch that he's gonna pay for everything on. Not to say that he's any more likely to cheat or leave, but I mean, when you are putting the power dynamic into being picked by a man, what's stopping him from picking another when he's ready to move on? I also don't think this movement gives a lot of consideration to the fact that whether you are encouraging Black women to date outside their race or just whatever you want them to do in this heteronormative conversation about relationships and partnering, it doesn't really give a lot of room for the fact that men evolve, women evolve, and maybe that Instagram boutique takes off and you become a real businesswoman. And what is your partner supposed to do? Or maybe your partner wants to switch job, or God forbid, I keep talking about healthcare because somebody end up in a hospital. Bruh. I mean, when it costs $600 just to go get a pap smear, I think, when you get entangled in the healthcare system because you were in a car accident or you blew your back out at work or, something real basic happened, it's real easy. It's real easy. And, I keep saying the precariousness of elevating your social class. Let me end on this note. This is going to be a longest video. We're sorry. I guess. And that's what maybe I need to interrogate more. Is the hypergamy movement on YouTube simply talking about the individual Black women when they marry and level up, that they're elevating their individual social class? But I think as someone who has elevated my social class in my own family, the precariousness of me being an individual and that's socially elevated in my family and still wanting to be close to my family, it don't feel good to be able to level yourself up and you can't level the rest of your family up. And there are unique challenges to the Black individual and the Black family that present itself, especially if you are marrying outside your race. Not to say that you shouldn't, but I think a lot of Black women are inclined to want to bring up their families, or at least individuals from their family, and keep some of those familial relationships as close as they have been prior to how they partner. And when you were entering into this power dynamic of you are with a man of a higher echelon and your family is not, the shit get tricky. And it's funny because I do have very close homegirls who are would technically be very pro hypergamy. Like, I when I pledged and, my one line sister was telling me you don't wear drawers that match. A bitch now wears panties that match. Matter of fact, I drove around to 3 different Marshalls and had to go to Norman's Rack yesterday because I was looking for this one set. And my nigga don't even care, but I care. He don't care. I care about the underwear I wear. He don't even be looking at that shit. He can't see in the dark. I'm so disrespectful. He blind. I care about the underwear that I wear because it's a comforting thing for me. But I do have a line sister who is very much so has always dated men of a higher social class than herself. Like always dated very, very, very wealthy men. I have a homegirl who dated a white girl who married a man from a hedge fund, who owns a hedge fund, but sis was already upper class. She was already wealthy. Her husband's just like Jeff Bezos wealthy. But like she too was wealthy. So it wasn't like this. It was a huge jump because most people don't have that insane amount of money, but it wasn't that huge of a jump. Like her family didn't look at odds with his family at the wedding. But then my line sister has always dated men of an upper class. And then she just will break up with a nigga because she gets bored. Because she still has different interests and, it's always his decision. He's paying for everything. So he wants to go to a certain steakhouse and she basic. She wants to go to STK. She is so basic. I have this running joke because STK is not a good steakhouse, but she loves STK because it creates the environment that she wants. And when she's dating these wealthier men, they don't ever want to go to STK with her because it's not a good steakhouse. But that's just like, it doesn't really come down to that, but there are other things in which she likes to do in the lifestyle. I mean, she's willing to largely walk away from the lifestyle, but she, even like my mom likes to go dancing. And, you marry a man who pays for everything and he don't like to go dancing, guess what he not finna do? Go dancing with your ass. Okay, that's it. This is probably like an hour-long video, girl. We about to edit these and see. But thank you for supporting. Thank you for joining the Patreon. Again, for a certain tier, you do get a second exclusive video this month. So we will be producing that. We don't have a whole lot of time left, but we will be producing a second video before the end of this month. But thank you to everyone who is in the tiers that get to see these videos. Thank you for supporting the book club. We have started the syllabi for the complex and the general track. We started the reading guides, and I've edited one. I need to hire someone from the cohort to edit this one on Voice of the South because I ain't got the time for all that. That's a little too complicated for me. And hopefully we'll be launching the book club real soon, like hopefully in the next 2 weeks. I'm just like, the website, I want to work a certain way to be able to do the proper launch. So just trying to get through that, and then we'll announce, and hopefully, girl, it seems so close and I'm a little scared, but launches book club next month. All right. Thanks for watching, and I will see y'all soon. Deuces.